Hello everyone. Feel good. I will rank every named build that I have fought and try it in ranked, biasedly. So take it as a grain of salt. There will be 5 tiers. Cancer tier. Top tier build that I hate to fight with. Autopilot tier. AC in this tier requires only a few brain cells to play and is still so effective. Respected tier. I deeply respect whoever uses this AC in ranked. Annoying tier. This tier is AC, which I find annoying to fight with. Sad tier. Sad build, try to have fun in cruel ranked. Let's start. Power Baka 20. I know everyone had fought this creature or at variant before. Max weight AC with 2 Zimmerman and 2 MLT 10 missile. Even it's super duper heavy, it can chase opponents very well with how broken the assault boost is. MLT 10 missiles will force opponents moving toward them, and Power Baka 20 with double-digit IQ will not shoot 2 MLT 10 at the same time. And to add sugar on the cream, P10 booster constantly shuffling will make FCS that isn't Ocellus get drunk from motion sickness. Autopilot tier. Blimp Kite. All this build does is fly up and fall down. Relying on how sad FCS can track vertical targets in this game. Preying on a non-meta build that doesn't have enough firepower to fight at close range. But this build will become a snack for other autopilot tier builds. Annoying tier. Zimm Shield. The OG of Armored Core 6 meta. Build that traumatized countless Raven or make them join the dark side. The only bad matchup for this build is this build, but more tanky. This build isn't that hard to use, and you will feel comfortable piloting it in a few games. But don't be fooled by how effective this build can be in the hands of mediocre players. This build skill ceiling is so high. It will reward your dedication for this game handsomely. It's a golden ticket to the top 100 when you are good with it. So if you do bad with this build, it's a skill issue. Cancer tier. Kinetic Rifle Kite. This refers to both Harris and Ransetsu kite builds. Typical kite builds rely on high boost speed to maintain distance and chip opponents with rifles and missiles. This kind of build can be a nightmare for an opponent that doesn't use a Santai or NGI generator along with a booster that has a good AB stat. Annoying tier. Lightweight Basho Ocellus and its variant. Remnant of Glory BVO. Lightweight build living on a fantasy of grazing all the bullets at close range and winning battle beautifully like an anime protagonist. But sadly, they got face slapped by Ocellus combined with netcode. Every time they lose. You will see new posts in Reddit or Discord about how OP hardlock or heavyweight AC is. Sad tier. Aggro Tank. Takefumi's signature build. Become well known to a mass audience by Moby Geeks Out. But unlike BVO, this build is unplayable unless you have a certain skill first. Minimum requirement to play this build is that you need to be able to perform an assault boost technique called shuffling. When in the hands of a good player, this is a very fearsome build. Respected tier. LRBster and its variant. Heavyweight AC with 2 LRB laser rifles. Rely on overwhelming defense and firepower to dominate the opponent. Only a few builds can fight this LRBster head-on. But due to how heavy the double LRB is, this build AB speed is not as fast as Power Baka 20. Make LRBster isn't good against rat tactics on some maps. Autopilot tier. Lamm. When FromSoft decides to nerf wheelchair into absolute garbage, they introduce a faster flying wheelchair into the game. And add ranked mode with map rotation that very favors this cancer part. Introduce new content along with a character that dominates it. This is a good selling tactic of the gacha game. Good job Yamamura. I can't wait to open gacha on the upcoming Armored Core mobile. This build is so strong and versatile to the point that the other meta build in this game builds around how to counter Lamm. But it's so boring to fight this build. What Lamm do is skybox and bombard the opponent with missiles. When you fly up toward Lamm, you will get bitch slapped with Nebula and HMMR. And surprisingly, this build skill ceiling is so high, like Zimm Shield. There are so many movements and weapon techniques to do with this build. So if you lose while using this build, it's a skill issue. Cancer Tier. Laser Tank. Moving fortress that can annihilate every build that gets close to them. In the hands of a good player that knows how to shuffling and boost kick with tank, this build will change from moving fortress to flying fortress. Don't underestimate its speed. With proper technique and knowledge, this build can move fast and may be able to catch kite build. Since this build has high AP and defense, fighting this build will be a long slog match if your weapon doesn't have enough firepower. Annoying Tier. Zimm Chimp. Or known as Monkey King. Hard stat check, brainless but effective build. If you can fire all 4 weapons, you can play this build. Very easy to play and effective enough to bring you to S rank. Autopilot Tier. Double Melee. The most honest build in this game. But sadly, other meta builds don't fight them honestly. There are so many techniques to do with this build that make it very fun to play. Damage output of this build is very high and may be able to kill opponents in a single stagger. But good players all know how to activate pulse armor in safe distance. And in order to deal significant damage to opponent, this build needs to get into the Ocellus range, where Zimmerman, LRB, and Itsujin perform the best. I deeply respect players that can play double melee very well, but Armored Core 6 doesn't favor players with high skill that much. Sad Tier. Therapist Kite. Mindless backpedal hardlock spam build combined with therapists that have enormous hitboxes and no reliance on FCS. Existence of therapist means other weapons that demand real skill and precision to do damage are mostly astronomically garbage in Armored Core 6. The only thing that keeps this build from becoming a top tier build is its lack of DPS to fight against other builds at close range, which only a few builds can get close to them. Autopilot Tier. Water Strider. Pillager's signature build. Become well known to a mass audience by Moby Geeks Out. This build is so hard to play but has many flaws and bugs that can get abused by opponents. The only reason that Pillagers can reach the top 100 with this build isn't how good it is. It's because of his enormous skill in this game to carry it to the top. Respected Tier. Rat. Build that designed to win by timer and never engage in fights. Rely on high AB speed to run from enemy. If your build doesn't use Santai or NGI generator along with booster that has good AB stat, you're going to have a hard time chasing this kind of build. Disco is the only player that is dedicated to playing this kind of build to reach the top. I personally don't like this style of play, but I deeply respected his skill to make it that far. Other Rat players don't have skill Disco processes. Make most of them die from top meta builds. Annoying Tier. Verde Kite. Or the build that I'm using right now. Create by Verde C with a rejecting meta mindset to fight other meta builds and utilize the map environment to its fullest. Laser Kite using a VE20V generator to compensate for the missing DPS from equipping shield. Use cover to compensate plasma rifle downtime, low cooling of the SUQ-5 shield, and low energy supply. This build will show its true potential on map with many covers like Xylem and Old Bertram Spaceport. But ranked map rotation doesn't have proper cover at all. This build that overly relies on using cover has become a disabled build and has a negative matchup to the most proper build in ranked. Sad Tier. Tokurobo. Abomination builds depend on how broken Ocellus is. Arms overburden? Don't worry, Ocellus will carry it. Don't get fooled by its look. Even though it looks heavy, it actually weighs around 75k. Make this build versatile enough to kite or engage in close quarter combat. This build is quite easy to play. What makes it a little bit complicated for other autopilot tier builds is that it isn't that tanky when compared to the Power Baka 20 and LRBster. But it has a shield to negate most of the damage when used by a good player. Cancer Tier. Laser Juggler. Heavyweight builds rely on weapon bay mechanics to avoid overheating their gun. This build has so much firepower that even the tankiest build in this game will be afraid of them. Its playstyle is very simple. AB toward enemy. Fire both gun. switch weapon, and pray that the enemy isn't good enough to dodge your shot. Some players even use macro programs to make it fire as fast as possible. But this build is one-trick pony. It can't change its playstyle when the enemy is good enough to counter them. Autopilot tier. Here the entire tier list. Please note that I rank all of them biasedly based on how I hate them. So please take it as a grain of salt. Thank you for watching. Hope you all find a new game to enjoy.